To 25-watt soldering iron. Maplin's will sell these for about £15. They've got a very, very fine tip on, and the best part of these is the heat disperses in the solder. Doesn't really heat up the components all that much because it's got a fine tip. I don't know whether you can see that. There you go. So for safety, I keep my soldering iron balanced on one of the wife's bowls. There you go. So I'm going to attempt to do the soldering section. You don't need to see me do this. It's very simple. If you see the little tinier resistors, they don't have to be touched. These black dots, there are little processors beneath them. They don't have to be touched at all. If you've got a pair of spectacles or magnifying lenses you could wear, then it's always best to hold a screwdriver on the component and then solder each tip. If there's too much heat going into the component, it'll travel up the screwdriver and probably not get too hot. But as I've done this several times, I'll just dab, 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 job done. Don't pay too much attention to being too intricate, just get the job done. Right, as you can see, I'm holding up this magnifying glass near to the components, and you can see they're a nice shiny silver colour on the tips now. All I've done is just wipe them with the soldering iron, pressing down so that obviously they stay in contact, and there you go. I've done every single one. First I did the bottom row and then went back and did the top row just to let them cool down a little bit better, and now I'm just going to do a reassembly. So as you can see, they're back in their positions now, but they're not screwed down tight. It's important that this part here, the ribbon cable, it slots in square. It must slot in square. I'd get the magnifying glass out and just double check. Once it's in position, don't close it down just yet. First of all, we'll just tighten up this heatsink plate. Once all these are tight, then we can double check they're square and just close down the flap. This will make everything square and back how as it was. Right, as you can see, everything's screwed down now, everything's in place. One word of caution, when connecting the ribbon back up, you see there, make sure that it is square and in true. Don't leave it cocky or twisted. You can tell that it's fairly square because when the brown clip is clipped in, the darker brown colour of the ribbon should be an even colour, an even line all the way across. As you can see there, nice and square. So here's the next tip on reassembly. You probably had to move this bar to get to these two drivers. On reassembly, just be careful that this screw hole and this screw hole lines up properly before you tighten everything down, because it's these two screw holes that anchor this bar for your mounting bracket when the TV's complete. Just pay special attention to the assembly point. Right, as you can see, the shielding's back on. That was pretty straightforward. This is very bendable, so it can be forced to fit. Remember to put the rubbers on with the screening on, and the same likewise. The only tip with this front section is this cable to the main power supply board. Just make sure this end bit just loops over this shielding. This will help just to protect this board from any interference that may be around this cable past the toroidal, like that. Very simple. Just make sure this is overlapped. Everything's screwed in fine now. All I'm going to do now is replace the main PCB board. Take note that if you remember, there was a cable, this is the cable there, that actually poked through a hole in the PCB board. Everything else clipped in its relevant positions. So we have the main circuit board back in position, but different from the side screens, this circuit board, it rests along the top. It doesn't clip inside. Just remember that. And also, if you're finding it difficult, then maybe it's because there's little plastic clips there and across there, just to help line things up. Once you've threaded through the cable through the hole, that can be pressed in to the relevant socket next to it. And across, if you have a look at this cable there, you can see that, clip it underneath the board out of the way, and that must go there because it can't stretch and bend and travel anywhere else. Likewise, the next cable, it must go there. There's not a plug anywhere else for it to fit. Secondly, a feeder cable, you can see where this slots on, very obvious. The mains cable, again, connects up very easily, and the rest of the cables just there, there and there. Don't forget then the 2 screws there and there, and the screws along the front. Lastly, there's the aerial selection. Just slot that in, couple of screws, and there's the socket for it. If you don't know which way round it goes, just double check, and you'll see on one of the circuit boards it's slightly red. For your information, the white side goes to the main circuit board. Right, as you can see, assembly is complete now. A slight area with this plug socket, it's actually red that goes onto the main circuit board, and it's the white plug goes onto the UHF circuit board. Again, before putting the back on, I'd go around and just touch every single plug that you've had anything to do with, just to make sure that they're nice, they're in, they're clipped in, they're safe, they're not going to vibrate loose, they're not going to go anywhere, and there's no empty sockets on the main board. This main board, there should be no empty sockets at all. Also, double check that the earth cable is screwed in properly, and your mains cables are safe and out of the way of other screws, because when you put the back on, you don't want any screws to pierce the mains cable. Although the mains is filtered as it comes into the unit, it's always best to pay attention to where these cables run, as if they leak any sort of interference or antiference, it'll make the TV picture a little bit speckly. So there you have it, it's the completed job. It's probably took me about a good 45 minutes to an hour, but when you consider you can pick these TVs up from eBay for £50 to £60, it's got to be well worth the gamble for the repair. So I'm going to put the back on now, put the legs on, plug it in, and just see how successful we've been. So there you have it, success. An hour's worth of work and the TV's back to normal. I'm going to put the PlayStation 3 on now and run it for a couple of hours, and if it comes back then I know exactly what to do again. For such a nice TV, for such a big screen, it's just a shame to throw it in the bin. I hope this has helped you fix your Hyundai 4240. If it has, then say something nice in the comments section. Bye.